Come on, someone just wait for. If you've already chosen, then you want to see like the design. I also oh, that's right. I think we'll just get started. And then under the signal, and it's correct, would you mind? Because it's if you either as soon as I give the signal. So, well, welcome back, everyone, to the International Youth Conference 12. Thank you, Regina, for the introduction. So, apologies once again for the slight delay. So, we want to ensure everybody who is joining us here in person and online will be able to participate. As Eva mentioned, we'll have a short energizer before proceed to the next panel. So, I kindly would like to ask our esteemed technical team to start the video. So now we ask everyone to stand up. Actually, I'm sorry, because of the sincere apologies. And yes. So for this energizer, we'd like everyone to stand up, and then we're going to quickly, get energized, as the name suggests. We're going to get energized, so that one will be ready for another fun after session. So yes, technical team, language, and please begin. So follow the video. And people online will post the link as well.
Why is he so sad? It makes it look like we're doing it wrong.
So running in place. So thank you very much to everybody partaking in that energizer. Apologies if the team online was unable to hear. We'll be sure to share the link, but we still hope you're able to participate. Thank you very much, everyone. And now we're ready for the after. Pastor Davino.
Everyone for participating in our energizer. I personally feel way more energized than I was 5 minutes ago, so thank you guys. Okay, how are you feeling? Good?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I need to hear more than that. How are you feeling? Beautiful. Okay. So our next session will be about full, effective, and meaningful youth participation, and we have incredible panelists. One of them will be Sylvia Kolinsky from UN Women Youth Advocate and founder of United Youth Council. So please welcome Zoya. Next up we have Enes Ruben, Volunteer Director of Youth Programs Peace Islands Institute, and he's also a very, very amazing human who is helping us with all the advocacy technical jobs. So thank you, Enes, for being here. Next panelist and speaker is Josephine. She's our incredible program and impact associate. You've probably seen her already throughout the conference. And lastly, I would like to introduce Aishu. I cannot give her one title because she's everything for us. So, yeah, please welcome Aisha, and she will be moderating this meeting.
Thank you very much, Nina, for the kind introduction to our next panel. Greetings, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow youth advocates joining us from all around the world, all protocols observed. My name is Aisha Narasimha-Devra, and I am pleased to be your moderator for our next session, Full, Effective, and Meaningful Youth Participation. And we thank once again everybody joining from around the world and right here in person in New York. The United Nations 2030 Development Agenda has been adopted by member states in 2015, which includes the Sustainable Development Goals and the cornerstone notion of leave no one behind. Youth are included as one group of individuals whose dynamism and optimism for a better world serve as an inspiration to strive in being active. Unfortunately, sometimes youth encounter challenges in their representation in fora which leads to discrimination. It is paramount to create a system where young individuals are provided with the same opportunities as other groups of individuals to ensure equality. So now, as we proceed into our discussion about meaningful youth participation in various fora, I would like to first ask them, I'd like to present the first question to our esteemed panelists, who will be introducing themselves and sharing some of their work in the first question to better get acquainted with all of you. So I will first pass it to Josephine. And the question, once again, I pose to all of you is to kindly share your insights and experiences in youth engagement and participation. Josephine, the floor is yours. And we'll keep proceeding downwards, so then Ennis will follow pursuit, and of course Zoya. Okay, so Josephine, pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Aishu, for leading this discussion and having us here today. So my name is Josephine. I'm a program and impact associate for the International Youth Conference. You may have seen me running around a little bit, trying to get things organized, especially yesterday. I'm also a student at UCLA, going into my second year studying political science and global studies with a minor in French. And I'm also Director General for the UCLA Model United Nations program, so I organize our high school and college conferences. So, some Model United Nations, now getting to be here during the real UNGA week, which is very, very fun as well. To answer the question about youth participation, insights into that. So this year I've had the opportunity to attend quite a few different UN conferences, starting with the ECOSOC Youth Forum in April. And it's been very interesting to see the level of youth engagement. So the ECOSOC Youth Forum is a conference designed for youth. And a lot of the panels, very, very insightful, I might add, to begin with. But the representation of youth on these panels was not necessarily the level that I expected to see as a youth conference. And yes, a lot of the attendees were youth. There were remarks made by youth. I was there as a youth representative, but the people who were leading the discussions were not often youth, even in this youth conference. And I have found it very interesting to see that theme kind of move along throughout several conferences I've been to, which is one reason why I found the International Youth Conference so unique, where youth are put at the forefront of these discussions. And I think that that needs to be continued in the United Nations and other bodies and conferences going forward to get youth voices more involved.
Yep. So my name is Ennis. I'm the vice president at IOI, and also have been and doing a lot of the youth engagement work. I've worked in youth educational programs since I was 17 years old, and I'm 27, so 10 years of youth engaging experiences. In regarding of youth and involvement of youth programs like the Youth Summit, the International Youth Conference, the conferences that we have been go to is very important. But the thing to keep youth engaged and involved is for them, one, to have a voice in the table so that it is meaningful for them to come and participate, not as listeners, but active participants in those conferences. Youth want to be involved and take actions, and when they come and sit there and just listen and continue to listen, and then it becomes like 8 hours of listening to all those incredible people, but usually we start hanging out after the first 2 sessions on our phones, on our social media, seeing what our friends are doing, where are they at, are they traveling, or are they having a real impact back home? Maybe we have started a youth organization, a nonprofit that we're trying to actually run, and we're at those conferences just listening to older people. So that is an important key aspect, that we have to involve youth and bring their friends and make them or put them in the forefront of taking action, because they have been taking action in where they are. Other than that, they would have not been there or not interested in the work that is being done in the UN, and put all the energy, efforts, money, which is really hard to come by, and put the effort to attend those conferences. So I feel like for youth, it is really important to take action and put them in the leading fronts. And in a historical sense, I would say that youth gain experience when you hand them something to do, and they will sit by or wait. But hopefully, it's changing. That because the UN have not given us seat, we're now trying to take it on our own because of all the energy and synergy that we have as a youth. That's like let's say it'll be in a kind of war context, but like Alexander the Great, like he has become the emperor in 20 years while he was 20, like way younger than his counterparts, but he have conquered way a lot. So when you give place for youth to thrive and utilize whatever they have, they will always forepass what their capabilities are and prove everybody else wrong and make the thing happen. Yep.
My name is Zoya Krinsky. I'm a 14-year-old youth advocate for UN Women. I work with a various amount of UN agencies. I'm also the founder of my own organization, the United Youth Council, which kind of really ties into your question. We're an organization that wants to give young people a chance to have their voice heard, a chance to have a platform to be able to talk about the things that they're passionate about, raise money for the things that they're in their communities. And when we're talking about youth are the future, where we young people are going to be the ones having to suffer the consequences of the decisions made today in policy. And I think it's really important, as we will be living in the future, because we are the future, that we get a say in what is happening, and a say in what decisions are being made with policy, with education, innovation, agriculture, all of the sustainable development goals, because we're going to be the ones living for them in the future. So I think it's really important to remember that we cannot exclude the future from building itself. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody, for sharing your insights, and that too coming from very different perspectives, and seeing how better we can improve those ways of participation in those various endeavors that you've been involved with. So now, as we go into our next question, which I'd like to, which I post on 3 minutes per panelist, are what practical resources, whether it be financial, technical, or political, are most critical for enabling youth to participate effectively in complex policy discussions? So now, just to, of course, go rotate around, Enes, maybe if you'd like to go first, and then we'll go to Soy, and then back to Joseph.
Could you quickly repeat the question?
Absolutely, yes. Well, so the question would say is, what practical resources, whether it be financial, technical, political, most critical for enabling you to participate effectively in complex policy discussions? And although that question may seem complex, we'll definitely break it down through by hearing it from our panelists. So, Ennis, the floor is yours.
Thank you for that.
Yep. All right. Yeah. So first, financially, to empower youth, hopefully, our leaders or people around us should have some financial incentives or motivations or help the youth to fund their experiences. But if not, I believe a lot of youth, especially in this day and age, like while I was a mentor for high schoolers and middle schoolers back 5 years ago, all of them started investing using their parents' accounts, started buying and selling things. So I feel like the youth of today have the energy and the means, utilizing the technology that we have today, to be able to fund themselves. Yes, it's not easy. It's really hard to find the grants or anything else as well. Search for the funding and fund yourself to be able to attend in places of policy making. So I really advise also to gain the experience of making the money, contacting, networking, all the communication skills that you will be gaining from advocating for yourself and gaining your financial assets yourself is very important. And the second is, as you're your own supporter, you won't need to be biased by others' thoughts. Let's say BP is giving a youth fund, but you can only be able to talk about 13 things, right? Like they won't let you to go too much about the climate and things like that. So like whenever you're your own funder, then it gives you the opportunity to talk about whatever you feel that's more important to you. And in the technical side, the other day I read an article about Mackenzie continuing to hire newly grads. And their reasoning was, while everyone else is stopping when AI is improving efficiency and they're keeping their senior leadership and stop hiring for the new grads, they're continuing to hire. And the reasoning is that now this generation that is growing, they're growing with AI. So they're AI literate instead of the people that they need to teach how to use AI. Those students, since high school or middle school, they started using ChatGPT or all the other resources, crack the system, knows all the ins and outs on how to utilize the new technologies, while the people that are already in the workforce are still thinking of how to implement it, what are the good ways, how to utilize it. So the new generation is coming with their technical capabilities all in and ready. So utilizing those are very important. That would advance us from a lot of people, especially with AI. Now that with the research tools that we're getting, we can do maybe months of research or going on to hundreds of sites, maybe in 5 minutes. You just type in a prompt into Gemini research, and then it looks into 250 sites and gives you a report that you have to go through and fact check, which is very important because it might have gone on Reddit and copied some nonsense over there as well. So we have to fact check it. But the thing is, now with the technological tools, it is really, really easy for us to gain the capabilities of research institutions or times that we don't have, which is very, very important. And coming to the political will and influence, I think I'll just leave it to Zoe because I think she's an example of this in live action. So there you go.
Well, youth voices and their ideas, are extremely powerful. They have the potential to change the world for us for the better. But we have to remember that even the best ideas, the best inventions that these young people can potentially create, they need tools to be able to reach the table and to be able to reach the world. Because an idea without funding, without the tools and the resources, it's impossible to create something, right? So I think the most important practical resources we can use and we can implement for youth participation is funding, and for travel, for projects, for access to technology. I think it's really important because we have all these young people from all over the world, some of the most genius and brilliant ideas that could change our world, that could solve global issues, that could solve sustainable development goals, but they cannot bring those ideas to the table because of lack of funding, just money. right? So I think it's also important that we have mentorship access for these children, for these youth, for the youth with a passion. They want to do something, but they just don't know how, right? We need trainings, we need mentorship and policy, negotiation, research, and communications. All of these young people, they just need guidance, right? So I think that's some of the most important things that we can do is funding and guidance for these young people, for them to be able to really be able to bring things to the table effectively.
Well, I would first like to say that I completely agree with what my fellow panelists have shared before. Just in terms of financial, I feel like in today's day and age, the technology is just rapidly advancing so quickly. On social media, I mean, there are some people who are fundraising to attend conferences like this, who are connecting with people, and our generation, more than any, is using that effectively in ways to get involved and to get their voices out there in a way that has not necessarily been done in the past. With that said, there are also, as Zoe mentioned, so many financial constraints. I think about my high school. I went to a public high school in Long Beach, California, and I was very involved in the Model UN program there. We traveled to DC and to New York during my junior and senior years, but a lot of students could not afford to travel, and it was our club and our teacher, our advisor, who took on the responsibility of raising funding to allow these students to go cross country. Some students had never been on a plane before to attend these conferences, and it was only because of the dedication of our advisor and our program that we were able to do that. But if there was some outside funding channel, it still would have been possible without it, but it just makes everyone's life a lot easier and you can focus on the conference itself. In terms of the technical side, I personally have a long way to go with artificial intelligence use. I know a lot of my colleagues and peers are a lot more tech savvy in terms of using ChatGPT and AI. I feel like we had a very insightful conversation in one of the panels yesterday, where there are both positives and downsides. That with everything, you need to be sure that there are proper restrictions, and artificial intelligence. It's a whole new world that I definitely am not as integrated into as maybe I should be, but it's just important to keep that in mind. And for me personally, I would say the biggest thing is the political side, making sure that youth have a seat at the table. You have to have financial and technical means to get there, but there's nowhere to go if you don't have a seat to come to. And in a lot of ways, youth are creating their own paths. But having those official channels, those technical channels, to be in big dialogues in this space, whether it's at the United Nations, at a different conference, or even just speaking at your own event or organization that you've created, it's having those official channels and platforms that allows real change to be made with youth perspective in mind.
Thank you again to the esteemed panelists for sharing that wealth of knowledge, and I do agree with all the very poignant remarks all of you made, using technology in a way where it's not replacing human beings. And I think in the end, you always have to remember it's actually human beings who create technology. So as I said, it's the human mind that created the computer. So I think, I myself actually also don't use a lot of that technology, but it's always good to be familiar with it. But what I think is always know how it's like a balance of the old ways and just adding on to the new ways. And then in terms of how you mentioned mentorship and guidance, both Enes and Zoya, that is very important, creating those pathways. In fact, the United Nations Department of Global Communications, also known as DGC, in some of the civil society conferences, they've had an intergenerational approach in terms of forming the planning committee. You would have individuals with years of experience as one of the co-chairs of a specific subcommittee, which include either exhibitions, or if it is, of course, fundraising. So you have one person with a wealth of knowledge, and then another person who's just starting out in their advocacy career. And this is how we can enable creating those platforms. And of course, as we've heard from the various discussions, even the International Youth Conference platform, which has grown from its first edition in May 2020, actually is a byproduct of one of those society conferences from the edition in 2019 in Salt Lake City, Utah, the United States of America, and again to create that platform for people. So thank you very much to all of you. And now, since we go to our next question, how can we create inclusive participation models that actively bring in the voices of some of the most marginalized youth? So now this time, Soya will pass it on to you, and then Ennis and Joseph.
Well, thank you so much for your question, for all of your guys' insights. I think it's really, really important what all of you guys are talking about. But I think youth participation isn't real if only the privileged voices that have the most accessibility to those spaces are heard, right? Because we need people from marginalized communities. We need indigenous people, people who aren't usually part of these spaces, right? As a stereotype. I think the most important thing we can do is we need to use targeted outreach for these people. We need to find them because sometimes they can't find us. And when they can't find us, we have to find them, right? For underrepresented communities. We need to provide funding opportunities and technology. We need to give them the accessibility. We need to give them the opportunity to be able to be part of these spaces. We need to create programs, particularly for these underrepresented communities, and mentorship programs and guiding programs so they can learn how to participate in these spaces effectively and not just be a placeholder or a token young person that just gives a speech and then leaves the next day. I think that's something that we'll be talking about later in the panel about token young leaders. I think that's something very, very important that we have to talk about because right now, young people, we need to make sure that it's full and effective and not a token young leader. So I think these are some of the most important things that we can do to represent underrepresented communities in these spaces. Like for example, in my organization, the United Youth Council, we're actively recruiting young people from all over the world, from over 15 countries. We have people from Africa, from Australia, from literally all over the world. And we give them the chance to be part of these spaces. And I think it's really important to have more programs like the United Youth Council so they can particularly be represented in a more effective way. Thank you.
I completely agree with you, Zoya. It's so important to bring in these voices, and I really like your idea about creating official programs as well, official channels to get those people in, again, kind of tying it back to the political side and channels that need to be created. One thing that I think is very important and that has been implemented at many conferences now more so than before is the addition of online sessions, hybrid sessions, to allow people who may not be able to join in person to still be in the dialogue, to network, meet people, and connect on these official platforms. But with that, there are also so many people who don't have access to technology to begin with. Yes, there are some people who are joining online who are coming in person, but that is still a very small fraction of the people in the world. So having regional sessions, having community dialogues, and everything at the grassroots level and building it from there is very, very important as well. And just to build off of what Zoya has said, I feel very lucky to have throughout my life been surrounded by a very diverse group of people, whether that's ethnicity, religion, background, age, gender, everything. I feel like my life has been shaped by the people I've been around and the diversity of perspectives. And it's so important to keep that in dialogue because if you keep having only one mindset going forward, there is no real change that's happening. There's no evolution in thought. You're just going to have the same system that does not work for everyone. And I feel like one platform that we have at least, tried our best to meet that diversity is the International Youth Conference. I think the IYC at 11 had representatives and attendees from over 170 countries. And just having that wealth of perspectives is so important because, again, if you only have one perspective, you're not going to make any real change.
I really agree with your thoughts, but just to add on and move on from the dialogue perspective of the things, like to bring in a marginalized community to the table. One, as indicated, the financial aspects are really important. To go to them is very important because they might not have the means, capabilities, or even think about being and going attending a conference when they need to solve to bring bread for the house. Like, why would I go to a conference and try to speak and try to convince people when I just need to get the end means of my day or help my parents do certain things? So here, as in the beginning that we said, the financial aspect is very, very important, and the mentorship aspect of it, to find those people, going to them, maybe helping out the family so that that person can come and advocate for the family and give the voices of those marginalized communities within there. And then the dialogue aspect, while bringing those people, the concept of dialogue is very, very, very important. The being open-minded, like not having your thoughts and then trying to advocate for your own thoughts and beat the other person with your thoughts. It's not a debate. We're trying to solve world's problems. We're not debating on whose solutions are the best. So everyone within their own communities might have different experiences, different cultural backgrounds, different perspectives, and we have to be open-minded to the thoughts and the things that they're saying, and without judging or without having our precondition in our mind, oh, they're coming from that aspect of the country, how would they know? Or they would not have been exposed to AI or those new technologies, how would they solve any certain issue? So all those prejudices that we have should be resolved within those engagement environments that we're having, so that we can actually move forward on making those decisions and making those policies and advocate for the youth who are coming from behind us. And to make those policies, I think right now is more than ever really important that the youth that came up to certain positions, maybe they fought for too long, now they're in a position in the UN, they have a voice, now they need to advocate for their peers back home, right? For their peers around. So now is that you have maybe taken a mentorship, you have found a network within the community, and you have put your foot in. Now it's time to pull your peers. So it's the continuous mentorship aspect, and I really love that as mentorship. Within the studies, like someone who gets a mentorship is high likely to do that mentorship to someone else, because they have seen the impact within their lives, and they want to continue that struggle, like that work that they have been doing. Like I've been a mentor for a middle school group, and they were all boys, and we know how, especially middle school boys, behave. And then one day he became a college student, and he started mentoring for the middle schoolers as well. And he came up to me and said, I really appreciate you when I started giving this mentorship, because if I were me during that time, I would not look after myself, right? So if we push on the voice of mentorship and help others and pull them to our side, I think there will be a wave effect that will start moving more and more and faster, and hopefully this will impact the world and make a change.
So thank you very much for all the panelists for sharing your views on. There were 3 questions to, of course, provoke the discussion. Now we would actually like to pass the floor to all of you. If you have any questions for our panelists, if you'd also like to share any comments, and we will definitely, our esteemed staff will be providing you with the microphone. And also for all the people joining up, please feel free to share your comments and questions. Will definitely come over to you. So maybe we'll take this in rounds of 3, just in the interest of time and then to keep the flow. So thank you very much, of course, to Jaya. So yes, we have one question here in person. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Gael Chloe. I'm from Benin, and I really appreciate this about like how we can actually make change. But one thing I actually didn't get yet is how are we seeing the mentorship? If the people that we are, if the people we are getting this mentorship from are saying that the decision and that we are trying to fix right now. So mentorship for me is not something we should bring at the table because it seems like someone is above and we have to follow them. In that way, we might end by being the same person we are trying not to follow. And also, mentorship, I think it won't work at young and old, like 30 people working together. It won't work because they will already find a way to prove us that it should be how it is, not how we think or how we suppose it. So it will be, I think, the way will be a partnership. We change the idea, we learn together, we have our new idea, and they should at least allow us to experiment the idea we are bringing at the table. Because when we bring a new idea that goes against the interest of like this kind of organization or this kind of companies, we already have a block line. So that's why I think our voice, our decisions, our efforts is not bring us to the action and actually the solution to problems.
Thank you very much. And do we have any other questions? We'll take the rounds of three. I believe, yes, we have one esteemed attendee.
Hello, my name is Zahra Ahmed Ajay, and I'm a 14-year-old advocate for sustainable development and children's education. And I really enjoyed your session. It was really nice to hear you all share ideas on what youth participation should look like, because it's crucial really to achieving the sustainable development goals. And I wanted to ask you a question. We've already discussed about how important and crucial it is for the youth to be involved in sustainable matters and global issues, right? And yes, it's crucial, it's paramount, we can't do without it. But at the same time, the youth won't get involved if they're not interested. And one of the biggest problems nowadays when it comes to youth participation in sustainable matters is that they're not interested. They're diverting their energy and their attention and their focus into things that aren't really worth it. So how can we shift that focus from things that aren't beneficial to focusing on things like sustainability and how they can make their future and the future of others better for all? Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you for your questions and thoughts. One more question, then we'll pass it over. Do you have a question? Yes, sir. Yes.
How did you make this Disney? So like this advocate was talking about how most of the youth these days are just not interested. How can, so for example, like Zoya said, the Native Americans, what if they are interested, but they don't have technology, they don't have the access to the technology, and so they don't find out that growth that you guys are doing this for them. How will they get to make a stand if they don't have they don't have the technology to know that this is happening?
Thank you very much. So thank you to all of you in person, and then yes, apologies, unfortunately we have to move to our responses. So, but we'll definitely all, please do continue to engage with us, and we'll quickly also try to pass the line and check on. So I'd first like to pass it to Zoya, please, if like 1 to 2 minutes maximum, yes. Thank you.
So to answer the question from the gentleman about the mentorship, Well, I think, in my view personally, mentorship is going to come from the communities. When I talk about mentorship, I'm not talking about institutions, gigantic governments giving, hiring people that are the ones excluding us, mentoring us. When I talk about mentorship, I mean we need more local organizations, more grassroots, more communities coming together and mentoring the kids of their city, the kids of their state, the kids of their country. So I think it's really important to remember that when we talk about mentorship, we want it to come through the communities. We want everyone to be one big family and mentor and help each other, right? So I hope that answered your question. For the answer for your question, Zahra, I think it's a very, very important question that we should be asking. We're going to give all these young people these opportunities, but they're just plainly not interested. I think the reason they're not interested is because we're not the ones interesting them. It's because they don't know anything about this. They don't understand this space. They don't know that they can get involved because we're not teaching them from an early age. Which is why I think that we should be implementing leadership and empowerment from the earliest ages in the schools. And I think a lot of schools nowadays are actually implementing talking and learning about the sustainable development goals. And I think that's one of the most important things that we can do. Teach these kids from the earliest ages about sustainability, about the ways they can make an impact on our world. And I think that will potentially make them interested more into how to change our world. I hope that answered your question. And to answer your question, L'Oreal, sorry, where's your question? How can we reach? Yes. So I think the most important way we can reach all these people that don't know about these opportunities is, I think, as you were already saying, Josephine, through online webinars, through doing it, doing it hybrid. But as you said, a lot of these Native Americans and indigenous communities don't have technologies. Right? And this is a very big problem that is being faced. A lot of these underdeveloped countries that are still developing don't have the resources for technology, they don't have these technology, right? So I think this is something that governments should take over, and the governments of the country should be helping bring in technologies to these indigenous people. And obviously sometimes governments don't want to help the people, but hopefully there will be more organizations helping these from all over the world. There's a lot of nonprofits and a lot of NGOs that are currently working globally to bring technology and resources to these indigenous countries. And I hope that we see more of them in the future. Thank you.
Yes, to take on the question of the mentorship, as we have seen, we have to believe that we have advocates within. So the systems that have been created, maybe they have been created by the elderly, the generation before us, but I don't think all of them are in the same intention. So that is really important to find those people that are willing to help us. Like within the panels that we have seen, like the panel that's just before this, our senior panelists have indicated, and their voices are also being taken away from them, from the middle, whichever people there are that wants to prove their own agendas. That's why our partnerships and involvement and mentorship throughout, within intergenerational, will give us the aspect and the potential to succeed way faster by just ignoring them. Because they went through a lot, lived through a lot, and they have the experiences. But we're energetic, and change will happen with us, with our energy. I don't think they will have the energy or means to implement those changes. We should be the implementers, but we should always seek advice and their thoughts on how things work. Because if we just want to break the system, now that there's a system, it's not good, it's not perfect, but if we break the system, now there's no system. And building something from all the way ground up is really, really hard. And unfortunately, a lot of wars are doing this, right? They're breaking the countries apart without dialogue, without coming together and building peace. They break the country, and then it's a whole lot of different stories. So I think mentorship within intergeneration is really important. And making things interesting is an important aspect. Like while I was doing mentorship, we're having, let's say, a volunteer program on the weekend at 10 a.m. but a high schooler would need to wake up, right, and go to that program and learn about that and feel that they're making an impact. How we overcame this within our mentorship system is first, we found those who are interested, right? Those who are here, those leaders that already know within the same age group, right? Those understand their friends. If you're within the same age group, you will understand their perspective and their needs. And we have formed a student government with those students in leadership positions so that they can understand their friends and advocate for the things that would help them come to those events. So they are invited their friends, and usually in those age groups go because it's fun, because they have their friends over there. So making it more engaging and fun, and being friends with those people would probably encourage them more and more to be on the driving seat. And I guess of time, I'll stop here and go.
Thank you, first of all, for the questions, and for the sake of time, I won't really repeat what my fellow panelists have said, but I really appreciate your insights and agree with everything. Very quickly for the mentorship question, I appreciate, first of all, your perspective, and also the way that you framed it, as I don't think that mentorship and partnership need to be two distinct ideas. In a lot of ways, I feel like the mentors in my life have been partners. There's been an exchange of knowledge. I've learned so much from them, and if there's any knowledge I can convey, then I would be happy to do so, but it's more of a mutual exchange regardless of age. It's intergenerational. I feel like a lot of my teachers have been my biggest mentors, and they, it also depends a lot, as Edison mentioned, the type of person, but they've been receptive to anything that I've had to give as well. So finding the right people and also viewing that mentorship as a partnership, and making sure those aren't distinct ideas. In relation to the access to, youth interest in these spaces, I feel like, as Zoya had already mentioned, having the SDGs in education, for example, is so important. Not having Model UN in my high school would have completely changed my life. I was very fortunate to have a very good program to be able to learn about the Sustainable Development Goals. My high school teacher, he played a 17 Sustainable Development Goals rap that the UN had created. That might have engaged some more people, but trying to find ways to get people interested, especially in education. And finally, for the last question, very quickly, I feel like many opportunities I've had in my life, I have stumbled upon them by chance. Finding out the International Youth Conference, I just went to a club meeting one day, not even related to the International Youth Conference. It was for the UN Association, and Ali and Kelly came to speak, and that's how I started my time with IYC. But some of these things will happen by chance. So again, having those more concrete programs, those pathways, and making sure that you have community representatives in sessions. At the last International Youth Conference, we had some Maori speakers who came from New Zealand, and they were able to bring the IYC back to New Zealand and to their communities. So it's so important to have community representatives as well. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody, and apologies, we were unfortunate to truncate a bit of response, but thank you for your responses to all the people online. Apologies we couldn't get to you, but thank you to one viewer who shared us about dynamic leadership also, which is very crucial as well to creating those meaningful systems. And please feel free to continue to share your thoughts. I'd like to thank all the panelists for their time in sharing some of their valuable expertise, and of course the organizers. By ensuring youth from various parts of the world are included in the development of an equal and peaceful society, the Sustainable Development Goals can indeed be achieved, where every individual can lead meaningful and dignified lives. Thank you very much, everyone, and I pass it over to our youth coach of the day, Nino.
Thank you, Aisha, so much for moderating this wonderful panel. Thank you for all the audience members and the participants who asked good questions, especially the younger ones here. It's very valuable to have your insights here at International Youth Conference 12. We will have a 9-minute break, and then we'll have a workshop at 2 p.m. So feel free to talk to each other, mingle, and then we'll be back by the workshop. So thank you.